talking about DEI. DEI, divestment, whatever it is, but you know the idea, which is you come into a company, they've either got to hire, someone of it's basically, what do you call it when you get into college admissions? I'm trying to remember the legal name for it. Anyway, it's that kind of stuff, right? You're hiring people because of their race or their whatever it is, due to their skill levels. So DEI comes into companies, and then part of the things that you've had, and you've seen this over and over the years when I worked in corporate, which was, end of the 90s, that you start to have these, not struggle sessions so much back then, but it was, they're educating you on how to not domestically violence someone and not to do harassment in the workplace. There's all those kind of things, perfectly fine. Now it's come in, it's really increased over the last few years and I remember Barry Weiss talking about this on Fifth Column podcast about like trying to educate you on how, you are a racist, right? And so it's all this stuff here. I'm trying to remember the name, Cambry or whatever the guy is. Anyway, these people that are putting this stuff out, and you can't be racist if you're black. And I remember, when the black square came about for BLM, and my kids, they're like, white lives matter too, and all this stuff, and getting just vilified for it. And I remember them having the conversation, and them, they were teenagers, and actually willingly making their own assessment that if you were to reverse these colors, right? If you just say, instead of black, you say white, it's racist, right? It's just reverse racism that you are, it's just outright having. Now, at the time, my perception is like the left, and you see this if you guys watch the defamation documentary with me. You saw that the people going over to Israel, they were saying, we're not religious, but this is almost like their religion, right? The scaremongering stuff that's going on. DEI, in my opinion, was very much like its leftist ideology is oftentimes it's a religion. They are atheists, and so then this becomes their religion. It becomes everything they think about, and that is a problem. Now, you can't then go legally and say, I object to this on basis of my employer putting their religion on me, because there is a technical definition of what religion is. I believe you can actually stretch it to say that. You're just not going to win a lawsuit on that. But now we come into the point where this DEI mindset is infiltrated the right, and now it is being pushed as a religious thing specifically. We talked about the Heritage Foundation, and Kevin Roberts, I think that's his name, comes out. Kevin Roberts comes out and supports. He just says, I'm going to support. What's his noodle? Tucker Carlson, right? And then says some things about Nick, and then he gets vilified. Now, I want to say this. I'm not standing up for Nick. I'm not standing up for Tucker. I'm not standing up for Candace. I will stand up for Dave Smith, though. But for the most part, I'm just I get worked up with the name calling. You see this from, it was the actual thing here you saw with Ted Cruz, where he's like, they don't call you a Nazi because you are a Nazi or whatever it is, but they call that so they can kill you, right? And then he calls Nick Fuentes a Nazi and some other, and I think he was Tucker as well. The problem with that, then he comes back and he's like, but Nick is a Nazi. You never said if he is a Nazi, I can call him a Nazi. You just said they call you that so they can kill you. That is exactly true. Okay, that statement is true. His problem is then trying to justify it because he is no different, right? And you're going to be like, well, someone ends up going and killing Nick because he's a Nazi, which is what the left has been trying to do already. There you have it. Now, my point is, I'm not sticking up for Nick. I've trashed him plenty. I just was reading Chris Brunet's Substack. He's got all these things about trashing Nick. I'm perfectly fine doing that. Perfectly fine. But for the right reasons, right? This name-calling stuff it's done. Back to Chris Brunet, and I had I want to have him on my show too. He was the journalist. He had worked at the Manhattan Institute. He had ended up getting the Claudine Gay plagiarism thing spun out, and he worked with Chris Rufo on that. Now, those two then ended up having a split because he, at some point, Chris Brunet is what I like to say, Americanize it here, like Janky or instead of Yankee. Chris Brunet actually then was like, oh, and Bill Ackman's wife was doing some plagiarism stuff. Let's go after that then too. And they're like, no, you don't do that. And so then he's, the scales are pulled away from his eyes, and he ends up getting fired from the Manhattan Institute for all that kind of stuff. With that in mind, it's interesting to see the differences there. Like I said, I will go after Nick. I will go after all these institutions. Having them crumble to the ground is perfectly fine with me, right? And so you're seeing a dynamic here of this gatekeeping, which I'm not for at all. And so I just want truth and reconciliation in a sense with all this stuff. Okay, so Kevin Roberts comes out, and then there's this leaked audio, okay? Well, first of all, there was this, and I just don't have the ability to do this how I really, really wanted to. But let's go over here. I'm sorry, it's not as good as I normally have it, but this was a town hall thing that they were having with Kevin Roberts.
Thought you did a really good job, and I just want to say I'm grateful for all of our colleagues who are speaking up today. And especially for our colleagues on the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism, I'm especially grateful for their work. I also have a question about it, given some of the leaks that occurred yesterday. Right now, the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism is demanding that Heritage host Shabbat dinners with Heritage interns and junior staff. The faith of many Christians here at Heritage, myself included, would prevent us from attending these dinners in good conscience. As you know, for many Christians, Friday is a special day of prayer and abstinence to commemorate the death of Christ. I assume that no staff will be required to attend the Shabbat dinners, but my concern is that these dinners will serve as a sort of informal litmus test, and I'm worried that they will hurt many Christians who are not anti-Semitic but don't feel comfortable attending a Shabbat dinner. I would like to know how you guys would respond to that concern and how we can be sure that the dinners won't be used that way when the people requesting them or someone has already been leaking them to the media.
Thanks, Evan. The recommendations, and that was the word, there was no demand.
I'm going to parse this a little bit here, and we're going to get into a little bit more specifics. Recommendations from your employer, okay? Recommendations. I know they're not like we're forcing you to, but I know I could take, if you were reversing the roles, back to the reverse racism stuff here, if you were reversing the roles and Emily here says, she's recommending that any Jews at her place go to mass with her or to do, because it's a Shabbat. It's not like, hey, let's go out and let's go to Chipotle. It's Shabbat. It's something specific here, okay? And if that was to be the case, if you were requesting that they were coming to your your mass or some sort of something else, and I talked about this last time with the hats at the wall, you would have so many lawsuits, rightly so, against your company. This is discrimination of some sort, religious, right? Freedom of association. Having recommendations that you go and do X, Y, and Z could be very problematic. My nephew and some of my friends actually, excuse me, they work for Adventist Health. Okay, it's a Seventh-day Adventist Health. It's a big organization with hospitals and whatnot. They are within the organization. It's very religious in there. There's not recommendations that you attend these things, I would imagine, because the lawsuits coming would be very distinct. Okay. But I would sit Shiva with them if I knew any. I mean, look, this is all on you. This is all on you and what you want to do. I think the reality, though, is let's keep playing this lady's thing, because it's not just a dinner. Let's listen to what she says. It's not just going to Shabbat with them. Let's continue to play this. Go.
Thanks, Evan. The recommendations, and that was the word, there was
recommendations.
No demand was made. That is a gross mischaracterization of what was issued by the co-chairs of the Anti-Semitism Task Force.
There you go, more. Now, I will say this. His question was, are these demands or are these recommendations? So immediately she comes back and says, hey, you're misrepresenting it. These are not demands. That was a fucking question, bitch. Okay, answer the question. No, these are not demands. Let's reiterate this. Sorry if you think it is. They set up an anti-Semitism task force in this foundation, and part of those recommendations were
yesterday, of which I am one. And I take some offense to that characterization.
Whatever.
This was a recommendation, one of 6 recommendations that the co-chairs came to in consultation with the task force. to try to provide Dr. Roberts with a path forward. As I said, they were recommendations. They came out of the conversation, which we were grateful to have with you on this topic. And one of the offers was if any heritage staff would like to participate in this kind of a dinner as an educational exercise.
There you go. As an educational exercise, they can couch and they can legalize their way out of this as much as you can. But I would be using this if, let's say, I was doing a lawsuit, right? Hey, I'm getting fired. Evan's getting fired for this leaked stuff being pushed out. Or even Kevin Roberts here. I would be like, here you go. What was it? 42 USC 1983 Act or whatever you're going to do. Bring the civil rights thing. Freedom of association. I am having undue, force at work. It's called an antisemitism task force. First of all, so you already know that my actions and the accusations now are that I am anti-Semitic. You've also, and I would be just quoting these things out from here. It's recommendations. Okay, not a demand, but recommendations. Okay, in other words, we do this all the time. I just was in court yesterday. Client goes to family court services and it's mediation, and there's a social worker there that tries to work out things. And if they come to an agreement, then they come to an agreement. They could have partial agreements. And then the mediator issues recommendations to the judge, okay, of what the parenting plan or whatever it should be. We adopted it yesterday. We adopted now it becomes an order, but those are recommendations for the judge to make into an order. These aren't just like, hey, these are some things that would be interesting, right? Or however you want to do it. The problem is you're trying to, and then you say education for him and a pathway forward. These are all little things that you are going like anti-Semite, pathway forward, education, recommendations for what? If I don't do them, if I don't take your recommendations, now what? Now what are the consequences? If you question them, you're seeing also the consequences here too. Emily also says here, we can't even require our teachers at Catholic school to attend weekly school mass. Exactly. So you've got this problem here. But what the reality is, here's what it is. Let's say you had a Jewish person, Emily, working at your school. Okay, and you wanted them, but you want to humiliate them. That's really what I think this is all about. What is the issue with the wall? You always see famous people going there, head against the wall, their little hat on, right? Charlie Kirk even has one. As a devout Christian, I would be mortified that I'm like, now I'm in your garb. I mean, why not do some sort of Muslim prayer too, or something else? It's to humiliate you before your God and other people. That's literally what it is. That's my impression. This is the American, what they're doing here with this education stuff, and now the leaking and trying to call this guy out. This is the American version of public humiliation, going against your God of any which way forward. Look, you can go. I don't really have a problem. Go to Shabbat, but if you don't feel comfortable, and it's not even that, it's like, why don't you come over? We're going to participate in our religious ceremonies so that you could have this humiliation ritual, and now you're going to try to talk bad about us. It's very manipulative, and it is DEI to the nth degree. And let's finish this off.
Not as a betrayal of their faith. That
maybe it
is
is
an open offer from the task force. It was made in generosity of spirit and in the hopes of increased dialogue on this issue. And Evan, I'm deeply sorry that you could not see that as a generous offer, but rather a personal attack on you. It was not.
And that's the cue right there at the end. I'm sorry you were offended by my re-education humiliation ritual that you are an anti-Semite. I'm sorry you're offended that you are an anti-Semite. That's pretty bold. These people are just brazen at this point, and it's kind of pathetic. I did want to get to, there's another one here. This is Kevin Roberts. I think this is him taking the piss, and as the Brits would say, and being a complete loser.
Venomous coalition. A terrible choice of words, especially for our Jewish colleagues and friends who understand that, given history, to be a trope used against them.
What? I'm good with most of the tropes. Have you heard of this trope? Have you heard of this venomous coalition being a venom? There is nothing you can't say where they won't be offended. It's outright, and I'm going to get called all kinds of names here, but it's ridiculous. And what I mean by they is the people being worked up over this, okay? There's plenty of Jewish people, I guess is how you're supposed to say it, online that are kind of like, this is bullshit. Yeah, it is bullshit. Let the kid do what the fuck he wants. Why? And by the way, once again, I'm not defending heritage. I mean, Mandami, David was just talking about this. Mandami just gets elected, and this is the kind of shit that we're having to go against, right? But you got Josh Hammers of the world all pissed off that Sliwa didn't pull out because the Republican, it's supposed to be MAGA here from Josh Hammer. He's all mad that he didn't pull out to let Cuomo win. I mean, let New York burn its way through as well, right? We've had times, we've had Ed Koch, we've had other, not we, but New York has had horrible, de Blasio had horrible mayors from time immemorial. They've had some good ones too, and fine. It's not I'm in California. Do you guys give a shit what's going on in here? Maybe, because it can affect you. But for the most part, you're also like, that's your business and that's your problem. You live with those losers. Yeah, I do. And it sucks, but here you go.
And I very sincerely, very, very sincerely apologize to you in particular and to all of you for using that. It was not my intention to use a trope. I should have been better, so I hope you understand that. But I have to be better at being aware of those things.
This reminds me, years ago, I had some, it was just like in the 90s or early 2000s, I had a blog, okay? And I was writing stuff here. And there was an incident where a guy, it was a gang member, had like a Jewish star, and then he got criticized for that. There was something stupid about that. There was also the guy, and it's basically the misunderstanding of or it was not even a Jewish star. It was something else. I don't remember that one. But the one I do remember is a guy was in, I think it was in like the Northeast, and he was in a budget meeting for a city, and he used the word niggardly, which is miserly or, tight in the budget type of thing. The whole fucking place went crazy over this because they weren't smart enough to know that this was a legitimate word, okay? So then he has to apologize for your ignorance. That's what this guy's doing here. He's like, I'm sorry that I offended you for something that you should not have been offended by. But you are so much to be the victim that you can't help it.
My closest Jewish friend in the world,
who cares?
Yoram Hazony, has flown to DC this week in part to help me with this.
These people
he does not
to
have
help
to
me
do
with
that.
this.
And he may decide after we meet later today, Roberts, you're not worth it. And I told him last night I would understand. But he said, I know heritage term.
That's actually sad to me. My friend's going to fly here, and he's going to try to talk to me and let me know how much of a bad person I am. And he may decide I am not worthy saving. This guy knows his heart. Why are you letting this happen? It's like I can say these things out here because I know my heart. I don't have villainous what was the thing? Venomous coalition in my blood for the Jewish people. I don't. I have a problem with this mindset, and it's same with like the Black African American culture, which is a lot of victimhood. And you're still based on this fact that I just saw a thing the other day where a guy's like, I looked up who originally, it was a black guy, who originally bought my family as slaves, and I'm gonna go, and I'm like, what's it? These people had nothing to do with it. You had nothing to do. Why are you still in this mindset? Because it's easy for you, it's fun for you to have this victim stuff. Now you get to have this crushing defeat. And it's really somewhat pathetic. There was also, let's take a look here. I think we can go. I think we could hear. This was the actual release here. Thank you for your patience with us. We seek a path forward together with the Heritage Foundation. The following is an email based on your contributions and feedback. We appreciate all of your steadfast contribution to ensuring the conservative movement remains a home those who stand against anti-Semitism in all its forms. Dear Kevin. And by the way, back to the Kevin Brunet situation where he called out the Colleen Gay. I had Brian McWilliams on my show, and I said at the time, I'm like, they are not going after Colleen Gay because she's a plagiarist. That would have been done long ago. That's just the way they're getting her out, but it really has to do with the perceived ills of these poor, downtrodden, overprivileged Jewish college students on campus. That's really what it had to do with. And so there you go. And this is kind of the same thing here. Let's find a problem to always have. We appreciate that you took the time yesterday to speak to us. Our communication with the NTFCA members was a way to get more time to come to some agreement on how we can move forward together. In that spirit, we offer the following recommendations. Removing the video that created the firestorm. See, these are not I'm sorry. You can say recommendations all you want, but these are demands, man. There was 100 million Christians in the U.S. that found Tucker's comments deeply offensive when he called Christian Zionists a heresy and mind virus. Many of us on the NTFCA are among those who believed you called us part of a venomous coalition and implicitly questioned our loyalty to the United States. Yes. It makes it makes collaboration with Heritage difficult for our members. An apology to those Christians and Jews who are steadfast members of the conservative movement and believe that Israel has a special role to play with both biblically and politically. Bullshit there as well. This is just propaganda. This is such a struggle session. It is so obvious. This is what's frustrating. This is so obvious of what a struggle session is from the right, and you should be. They should be. This is what we need to do. We're doing what we happen to do here. Make fun of them and call this stuff out. Okay. Israel plays a special role both biblically and politically. Based on years of working relationships, we know that many of your top foreign policy staff at Heritage share this view and could probably help you craft such a statement. Condemnation of any content that Tucker Carlson has hosted or statements he has made, ... without calling for his cancellation or an end to your friendship. I mean, any content that he's hosted or statements that he has made, it just says any content that he's done. Are you going to explain what that is, what kind of content that you want, without calling for his cancellation, but an acknowledgement that you and Tucker have disagreements and you agree with and condemn his anti-Semitic content? We'll consider the matter closed. See, you can't even have discussions with these people because they are out. Just you said any content. How about one specifically that you don't want to have heard, right? And please, just because Randy Fine said he was an anti-Semite, and by the way, this is maybe Nick is an anti-Semite. Fine. Then that's it. But you don't seem to have a problem with Nick as much as you have a problem with Tucker. This is not the way it goes. I told you before, if you look at Charlie Kirk and his thing about the bullying that he was having from the donors in the donor class, their behavior is what caused him to leave the pro-Israel cause. He said, they give me no choice but to leave it. He didn't say, I may have to. He said, I have no choice but to do it because of your behavior, because of their behavior. It is clear that there is an internal battle within the conservative movement over who is to be included. No, you're trying to do exclusion. The division between no enemy to the right versus a moral conservative demands our attention. A conference that provides some guidance to the movement on how best to keep unity without needing to include the worst among us. No, well, you're making it sound like you're the worst. You pointed out repeatedly that if we face a challenge in reaching disenfranchised young men who are caught in the spells of Nick Fuentes and others. To address this issue specifically, we recommend hiring a visiting fellow, one who shares mainstream conservative views on Israel. Notice, this is what's crazy here. You can't, these people, and I mean like conservative, it's the ones on that type, the Zionists, right? You must have these mainstream views on Israel, Jews, and Christian Zionists who would help identify strategies. You can't have anybody with any differing opinions there. It's crazy. Who would identify strategies and tools to win Gen Z and beyond. The task force members would also like to host Shabbat dinners with the interns and junior staff of Heritage in partnership with Heritage to host conversations on Judaism and Judeo-Christian tradition. I mean, look, this is all part of this whole thing here, and it's bullshit. We appreciate your attention on this matter. We do not, if we are not able to come to an agreement soon, the relationship between Heritage and the task force will become irrevocably harmed. Wow, I hadn't read this before. This is actually the key here. So, Notice how she says, these are just recommendations. These are not anything. However, if they're not implemented and your attention to this matter, if they're not come to an agreement soon, which is you adopt the recommendations that we've had here. If you don't come to a recommendation soon, it will be irrevocably harmed. And basically, this is a warning shot. This is batshit crazy is what this is. There you go. So that's what I got here. I'm sorry I'm not able to display the chat today. I'm going to report you to anti-cycling task force. I'm not anti-cycling at all. Greetings from France. Hey, what's up, Fred? Tommy's in here saying niggardly. Thank you. Struggle session. What else did we have? I just wanted to clarification that there was going to be retaliation punishment if you didn't participate. Yeah, he just wanted clarification. But Emily, you can see, if you're still here, you can see here that this is the important part. We appreciate your attention to this matter. Let me go back here. Wait, that's not, there you go. That's why I'm still working on my OBS here. If we are not able to come to an agreement soon, the relationship between the Heritage Foundation and the task force will be irrevocably harmed. There you go. So I don't think these recommendations were anything but you must agree to those at some point. So anyway, the people are losing their minds. Here's the leaked. Should we play the leaked audio? This is the leaked audio. I don't know if it's any different than what the guy actually. Oh, I keep doing that. What the guy actually said. Here we go. Okay, so that's I guess that's the audio from the actual town hall. So it's not any different than the leak itself. So we'll just keep on moving on. Here, we're gonna transition a bit. So basically, I'm saying here, one, I don't care about the Heritage Foundation. They're letting perfect opportunities go by. This is the distraction that you're getting right now from the right. Zionists, and I'm going to try to maybe pinpoint it that way a little bit, which is you're not focusing on the right kind of stuff. You know, the America First really isn't just about like don't meddle in the foreign stuff. It's about like let's take care of shit here. Inflation. We've got a lot of problems in this country that are not being dealt with because there are distractions going on elsewhere. We're concerned about Heritage Foundation not condemning Tucker Carlson enough. I mean, this is just it's batshit crazy. And then you get Mandami, elected in New York because your focus you can't even, Dave Smith, I'm sorry, I just was listening to this, so it's in my forethought here. It's talking about, Dave Smith is talking about, the election there and how we're not talking about economics. The socialists just took over in New York. But my point there is just like, yeah, but, when Trump comes up there and his big issue is Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, the Republicans, what's different between them and socialists too? I mean, seriously, it's a joke. Oh, well, we're in charge. Okay, well, so now you're about the central planning, but you're the administrator that's just doing it a bunch better. So it's bullshit. David says they are overplaying their influence game and compounding on desperation. Well, they are, but as you can see here, they're winning with some of these big think tanks, and they are doing their best. They will drive them out, right? And so it's about humiliating you as a Christian, humiliating you as an American, so that you fall in line like Kevin Roberts is going to do. And by the way, if that's the person that's in charge there, where he stood up and you're like, great, that's my guy, and then he immediately kowtows to these people, the Zionists and everything. Then do you want to be associated with, that's why the Manhattan Institute's a piece of shit, right? They're even worse. But this Heritage, do you want anything to do with that? If this is what's going on in there? Tucker Carlson complaining about the old GOP and their libertarian policy. You look, Fred, you are completely right. I have gone after Tucker. And this is why I'm not saying people are like, I stand with Tucker. I don't stand with Tucker. I just stand against a lot of these other people. I'm not endorsing everything he says. I think what he said a lot of times about economics recently, right before he was off of Fox News was bullshit. He was really he was on with Ben Shapiro. If you guys remember this, Ben would have these stupid lights that was in there and little conversations he'd had. And he went on there and basically was advocating, central planning himself, some of this socialistic shit that Tucker was doing. If they want to come after him for that kind of economic stuff, I'm all for it. But you don't come after him for something stupid, right? But it shows, And this is, it was in COVID, right when COVID was happening. I was just starting my podcast stuff. I went on a podcast with these guys in Australia because they wanted to talk about Josh Zepps coming after Tim Pool. And if you don't know Josh Zepps, he's this Australian. He's on the Fifth Column. He's been on Rogan. And my point there is simply how if you call someone like Tim Pool, you can have disagreements with him. And I've said this for day one. This is the woke shit, which is you call them the name, right? The Nazi or whatever it is. Now, Ted Cruz says, the ultimate thing is you kill them, punch a Nazi or whatnot. But the reality is you don't then have to engage in their conversation. You don't have to have a dialogue. Why would you dialogue with someone that's a Nazi? Okay, perhaps. But now you're doing it, right? You're calling them anti-Semitic. We don't have to listen to him and all this other.